Hi everyone! My name is Angela Tucker and this is my Week 4 mini learning module on operations and process management. The learning objectives that I would like everyone to achieve are to identify the different methods utilized when forecasting, to identify the benefits of a flowchart when it comes to process and operations, and to identify the steps of business process reengineering. When it comes to forecasting, there are two types of methods. There's qualitative and quantitative. The qualitative methods use things like opinions, intuition, previous experience, emotions, and judgment in order to formulate opinion. Whereas quantitative methods use mathematical computations in order to formulate an opinion. Generally, people will take both qualitative and quantitative methods into consideration when formatting the big picture. Some examples of the quantitative methods are the simple mean, the simple moving average, the weighted moving average, exponential smoothing, and linear regression. The simple means uses an average of all past data as the forecast. So this wouldn't take into account any business loss or business gains that are expected in the future. The simple moving average uses an average of a specified number of the most recent observations, and each observation receives the same weight. In contrast to that, the weighted moving average uses the average of specified numbers of the most recent observations, but each observation receives a different weight. Exponential smoothing uses the weighted average with weights declining exponentially as the data gets older. And lastly, linear regression uses data to identify the relationship between one dependent variable and one or more independent variables. These topics were interesting to me because at my company we use forecasting on a weekly and monthly basis. We're always looking to utilize new methods and fine-tune our process in order to make sure we're the most accurate as we can be for our sales floor. Last month was one of the first months that our production team didn't meet their demand. So our forecaster was using gap analysis to figure out where things went wrong and where the gap actually was. I found out that he was using exponential smoothing for the first time last month as a trial when he normally uses linear regression and the weighted moving average. Exponential smoothing fell down because there wasn't a way to factor in specific hard drive testing times per unit. So it's also important to understand that a forecast is never 100% accurate. So that can always be a challenge with anything, but sometimes you have to give it your best guess. And sometimes we learn that you have to fail in order to be able to make changes and have a more accurate outcome and get a more accurate answer. Flowcharts. Flowcharts are a document that outlines a process using standard graphic symbols that show the flow of a process. These charts can be drawn out on paper or they can be created inside of the Microsoft Office suites. It's very simple and easy to understand, and each step is outlined with arrows showing where to go to the next step. Some of the advantages are that it shows clear documentation and allows for someone who doesn't understand a process to actually pick it up quickly without really diving into the process. It also may help you improve your process. And it allows you to also streamline tasks, and you can use it anywhere. You can use it when you're drawing on a whiteboard. You can use it in a PowerPoint presentation. So an example of a flowchart that I had to do in my old job was in regards to getting a filling at the dentist. So some of the bottlenecks in this process are that the dentist is still working on another patient, the dentist could be doing an exam, and the receptionist could be busy with another patient. These are all very common issues in the dental field that frustrate patients. Potential failure points in this flowchart consist of the dentist running really far behind with another patient, and a patient could walk out. If technology fails and the assistant cannot take a current x-ray, a procedure could not move forward. If a patient has to update their medical history once they get into the office, and they're at risk of getting a filling because they didn't take pre-medication, then the procedure might not be able to be done. So some of the opportunities for improvement in this flowchart would be for a patient to have the option to check in with a kiosk. This way, if the receptionists were busy, a kiosk would alert the assistant that the patient is ready. There also needs to be some sort of backup mechanism if an x-ray doesn't work. Technology can often go down at the worst times. A patient should be able to email the receptionist with an updated medical history prior to the visit so that if they needed any medication prior, it could go smoothly and the patient wouldn't have to walk away angry. And lastly, the appropriate scheduling makes it so the dentist does not run far behind. If the dentist finds himself running behind, they need to call the patient ahead of time to inform them so that they don't find out when they walk through the door and get angry. But this was just a simple flowchart that I had to create for our entire office just to know, what is our process. Here it is in layman's terms. This is easy for everyone to understand. Here's what we want to do. So business process reengineering. Process innovation is the implementation within a company of a new and improved production or delivery method. Once it's implemented, the process can undergo reengineering, which involves large changes within core processes in order to create more productivity. It's focused on meeting the customer needs and improving processes so it's better for the customer. Companies will usually start with a blank piece of paper and clearly and cleanly think about their existing processes and figure out how they can improve them. They use business process reengineering to eliminate any unproductive activities in their production process. There are two key areas that companies focus on when they need to improve processes: organizational redesign and the usage of technology to improve decision making. So there are 5 steps in business process reengineering. The first one is to refocus company values on customer needs. The second is to redesign core processes using information technology. The third is to reorganize business into cross-functional teams with end-to-end responsibility for process. The fourth is to rethink basic organizational principles. And the fifth is to improve business processes across the organization. All 5 of these steps are really important to business process reengineering. Companies utilize this method to reduce costs and cycle times and to improve quality as well as gain a competitive advantage. My company is constantly going through process reengineering because we're constantly evolving. We always look for ways to improve our processes that work for both our customer and our company. One process we tried to recently re-engineer was how we handled our hard drive boxes. As a company, we realized box consolidation would be cost-effective for the company as there would be savings when it comes to shipping. We failed to analyze how this could affect the customer. The first one we sent out to a customer consolidated, the customer immediately requested an RMA as they didn't think everything was shipped to them. They started to state that it was a short shipment. When our warehouse manager double-checked that all the cereals went out, he knew everything was there and had to explain what was done and why there were only 20 drives in a box versus the 25 that we had always been sending. So it was really confusing and annoying for the customer, and it ended up being a bigger problem for us in the end. So we learned a valuable lesson that we need to focus on the customer needs. If we're going to do box consolidation, we should have met with the customer and informed them so they knew what to expect. So I have 3 supplemental materials that I want to share. The first one is Excel data forecasting video series. So this was a good tutorial that just showed all the different forecasting methods and how they can be used easily in Excel. The second material is creating a simple flowchart in Microsoft Word. This is just a video that just shows how to insert the arrows and create the boxes and, make your flowchart actually flow. The third one is an article from The Economist on business process reengineering. So this was a good article that really defined why companies do it and, how it can be helpful in the future. The discussion questions that I wanted to give you guys The first one is to think about a product or products that your company sells. Identify which forecasting method would work best for your company in order to make the most accurate projection. The second question would be to think of a process that you would like to clearly communicate with someone either at work or at home. Create a flowchart outlining the steps of the process. The third question is to identify a process that your company had to re-engineer. Identify the reasons why the process needed to be re-engineered and if the re-engineering process was successful. These are the references that I used to obtain all of this data. And does anyone have any questions? Thank you.